Hello, my name is Frank Massinio, and I am the principal and founder of Solutions Architecture, a Verona-based architectural firm that has specialized over the past 30 years in the design of municipal architecture. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about the proposed Verona Emergency Services Complex that will service the police department, fire department, company number 2, and the rescue squad. So what exactly is being proposed? The Township of Verona would be requesting that action be taken to resolve long-standing facilities issues that affect the police, fire, and rescue squad. Over the years, while several alternative and individual plans were evaluated for each of the departments, little has been brought to fruition. This proposed plan entails the establishment of a unified solution that would seamlessly integrate the police, fire, and rescue departments into a singular public safety complex. Their consolidation not only facilitates the sharing of program spaces and services, but also serves as a strategic measure to control costs effectively. I'd like to walk through a little of the history as to how we got here, because these efforts didn't occur overnight. Since 2015, Solutions Architecture has worked with the township to explore potential improvements to the police department, but we know that the need has been here for some time. In July of 2018, we were asked to review the rescue squad facility and prepare a qualifications package to come on board and assist with renovations and expansions. In November of 2020, we were asked to review company number 2 firehouse and prepare a concept and budget for a new facility. Unfortunately, budgetary concerns sidelined many of these efforts. The township understands the need and as such has been exploring properties, over 20 locations for that matter, including those owned by the township, the county, Board of Education, and private facilities. In April of 2023, Solutions Architecture was commissioned to evaluate in greater detail several properties around town with the prospect of placing a new police department or potentially a consolidated public safety complex. Sites included 820 Bloomfield Avenue, or the former's Nature Corner Nursery, 22,200 square foot irregular site including partial street egress challenges. It requires street closure and reconfiguration, and overall its inadequate site size would prohibit any of the 3 departments from being located there. 318 Bloomfield Avenue, or Henry's and Verona Aluminum, would have provided a 36,200 square foot irregular site that's bordered on Church Street. The inadequate site size would not facilitate a police department or consolidated public safety complex with the necessary parking. Lakeside Avenue, the OLL parking lot, would have provided a 48,100 square foot regular site with a significant grade differential and retaining wall at the back of the property. Inadequate site size for a consolidated public safety complex with necessary parking. 217 and 225 Pompton Avenue provides a 118,000 square foot regular site. There is a significant grade change from the street to the back of the property, 91,000 square foot of usable space, and can fit a consolidated public safety complex along with additional parking. 27,000 square feet of the site would be unusable but natural green site. Here you can see the various assessment of those sites, the yellow dotted line being the subject property, and the overlaid image with blue, orange, and red being the program square footage necessary for police, fire, and rescue. It is clear from each of the properties that the footprint for one or more of the facilities would be inadequate, especially when combined with the amount of parking and access required for each of those properties. The only property that meets the needs of a consolidated public safety building would be the 217, 225 Pompton Avenue property. Since April, Solutions Architecture has met with the Township Administration, police, fire, and rescue chiefs, as well as other key personnel to explore deficiencies, needs, and potential improvements to each of the township's departments. Over the course of multiple meetings held over the past 6 months, numerous concepts were explored and revised, all at the aim of gaining consensus and compromise from the 3 departments on a facility that would not only meet their needs, yet allow for the consolidation of shared services. While nothing included here is set in stone, the concepts have been reviewed and approved by the members of each of the police, fire, and rescue squad. I'd like to turn now to the need, and we'll start with the Verona Police Department. The existing police department occupies some 4,000 square foot dispersed on various floors throughout existing town hall. The existing police department lacks the adequate program space required for a modern police station. It lacks efficiency and safety protocols, and it lacks gender compliance protocols. On the main level, 2,800 square feet comprised of dispatch, holding, processing, some offices, write-up, detectives, as well as a multi-purpose kitchen, roll call, and meeting room exist. On the lower level, 1,000 square feet of broken up spaces, including lockers, long-term records, and evidence storage exists. And on the upper floor, shared with the administration, is the police chief and police records office, about 525 square feet. In order to fully comprehend the need that the Verona Police Department faces, it's important to understand the history. Dating as far back as 1978, the borough's comprehensive master plan called out that the police and borough facilities are presently inadequate and it would be desirable to relocate the police department in other facilities. In the 1980s, it was discussed publicly, and the quote from the leadership was that they would work with the police department in developing a cost-effective plan for the upgrading of our police headquarters. In 1981, it was again stated that the facilities rank among the worst in the county. They are inefficient and overcrowded. These are poor working conditions under which Verona's finest must labor and has a detrimental effect on morale and job effectiveness. Again, in 1983, it was stated that our facility has serious limitations. In 1984, a move to the basement attempted to provide additional space needed. In 1986, 2 years later, it was again front page news that the public safety facility proposal was being studied. In 1988, with the construction of the new community center and new firehouse, the relocation of the fire department allowed the police department to move dispatch and the detective bureau out front to its current location. As for present day news, over the past 5 years, there have been efforts to explore potential improvements to the department, including locker room upgrades, additions and renovations to the existing facility, acquisition, adaptation of an existing non-law enforcement facility, or even new construction. It is clear from our evaluations that the existing police department in its present condition falls short of meeting some of the very basic requirements of the police facilities planning guidelines that were prepared by the International Association of the Chiefs of Police, nor does it meet the requirements of the Department of Corrections. Only so much can be done before the Department of Corrections mandates that the entire facility be brought up to standards. Understanding the deficiencies, it is common that existing facilities often fail on the criteria of adequate space. Even if the existing police building were gutted and renovated from top to bottom, the existing structure lacks the necessary square footage to accommodate the most basic of program elements. The facility currently lacks a true sally port and secure detainee entrance. It lacks the separation of detainee and staff or detainee and public. It lacks confidential interview rooms, a secured prisoner processing and holding areas or cell block, adequate space for department briefings or roll call, adequate space for an emergency operations center, adequate report and administrative areas, as well as no fitness or training areas or adequate locker rooms for the staff. There is also no adequate space for future growth. Given its present inability and lack of needed program spaces, the department cannot take advantage of revenue producing or operational savings aspects that could otherwise be possible with a new facility. These include share fee-based services for potential regional training meetings, potential training conferences that the host would often receive free entry for its officers, and a savings of dollars for the township, the shared use of a potential virtual firing range, the potential for regional or shared local dispatch center, and the potential for a shared emergency operations command center for the area. The following slides will show images of various existing conditions that exist within the police department. The dispatch is currently in inadequate space. There is inadequate gear storage. There are implements and stored items in every small nook and cranny that's available in the department. The work areas for staff are inefficient and open. There is lax privacy and the ability for sensitive conversations. Department briefings are held in an open space with a column smack in the center of it. People are crowded into small spaces. The inadequate work areas are in areas that were formerly closets that have been converted into office space. There is no privacy. You can see the processing room that has no separation for the detainee. There is no dedicated area for processing, and all of the work is performed in the same room. We have rooms that are serving as multi-purpose spaces for lunch, roll call, domestic violence interviews. The room serves multiple purposes and not one adequate, as well as deteriorating building conditions, water infiltration, forced the elimination of some storage rooms, and the ability for the police to adequately use the square footage that they currently have. The department suffers from inadequate non-secure weapon storage. There's no dedicated storage for any one item. Everything is mixed in one room. There's insufficient building and office layout space, with some rooms being larger and housing only one person, while other rooms house many people and are smaller. There are inadequate locker room facilities for men and women, and insufficient ceiling heights for the spaces in which they exist. Now let's turn our gaze on the need for the Verona Fire Department. The existing Fire Company Number 2 occupies about 5,500 square feet in its own facility on Bloomfield Avenue. The existing site is about 10,800 square feet, and yet the facility lacks adequate program spaces for the department. It moreover lacks adequate clearances for the apparatus and lacks efficiency and safety protocols. In addition, the existing facility is severely on the main level of 5,500 square feet. It houses 3 garage bays, 2 small unisex toilets, 1 meeting room, 1 kitchen, as well as access to a lower basement level, which is presently unusable. In understanding the history, in 1922, a wooden one-bay firehouse was built on its present location to house a one-hose tender. In 1926, a second bay was added, and this housed the rescue truck. A fire in 1949 destroyed the firehouse, and the present building was erected with 2 bays. In the early 60s, a third bay was added for an additional apparatus. In 1982, although it doesn't seem like a long time ago, was actually 40 years ago, the fire station was renovated to allow for heavier apparatus and the addition of a ladder truck. The front of the building was modified and a new concrete floor was added. A furnace and boiler were replaced and a new 3-inch water line was run into the building. In 2016, a study was conducted and explored renovations and additions, as well as the construction of a new firehouse on the existing site. It is important to understand that this building is 74 years old and not compliant with OSHA's present-day standards. The apparatus bay is 50 feet long, and the ladder truck is 48 feet deep. And the platform on the ladder must have a 1.5 foot clearance from the garage doors, which leaves only 6 inches from the wall of the back of the bay. There is no room for gear racks behind the ladder truck. All gear racks are on the driver's side wall, which creates a safety issue when 4 or 5 members are donning gear necessary to respond to a call. Overhead doors are only 12 feet high, resulting in a mere inches of clearance for certain apparatus. There are inadequate parking spaces. The company may have as many as 28 members, and yet there are only 11 spaces for all personnel going out on calls. As to the condition of the existing facility, there are major deterioration concerns. Major roof and flashing issues which have allowed water to infiltrate over some time, causing facade separation, exterior wall, window, and door issues, cracking, and stucco or plaster damage. Major structural issues due to building settlement, likely from the fact that this building was constructed over organic materials left over from the fire demolition in 1949. Floor tiles popping, wood floors warping, window frames at the meeting room and basement are rotted from the leaking. Steel lintels are rotted, expanding, and bowing. In August of 2017, a break in the main sewer line flooded the basement. There are 2 existing sump pumps in the basement which remain inadequate to keep up during heavy rainstorms, which only results in more water infiltration and damage to the existing structure. The existing air conditioning unit on the roof is beyond repair. Buildings and Grounds has had a company to come in and assess the unit and estimated its replacement would be somewhere on the order of $15,000. While the heating system was overhauled in 2020, the boiler was installed in the 70s and never replaced. In spite of extensive repairs, it is still in need of replacement. Major plumbing leaks throughout the facility. Sediment was found in the system. The apparatus bay floor drains do not appear to have an oil separator. The basement entry stairwell floods during heavy rain, and the basement door has been deteriorated and won't open, which poses another safety problem. Therefore, the basement cannot be used. In understanding the program elements, common existing facilities fail on the criteria of adequate space. Additional future apparatus bays and unsafe bay clearances exist. Adequate space for a training room, adequate kitchen space for the entire department, adequate office space for the members, adequate and safe oxygen tank storage facilities. There are no adequate toilet or shower facilities for the individuals working in the facility. There are no locker rooms or changing space necessary. There is no maintenance and workspace to work on vehicles or equipment, and the deteriorated infrastructure and structural issues, cracking, plaster deteriorating, power, lighting, and plumbing issues continue to bring the facility down. The next series of slides depict images from the building itself showing the deteriorated conditions of the facility. These exterior images show deteriorated stucco, rusted lintels, and water damage prevalent throughout the building's exterior. Water damage from the ceilings is causing water to leak and drip on radio equipment and other equipment throughout the facility. The facade structural damage shows cracking and settlement, as well as the front facade pulling away from the building structure. More images of water damage, either through damaged plaster and wall deterioration or ceiling deterioration. An image of the basement floor, which is damaged and rotted and expanded due to recurring basement flooding. Antiquated 1970s mechanical systems, as well as water damage dripping into electrical junction boxes, posing significant safety issue. One of the biggest issues in the department is the issue of inadequate clearances between apparatus and equipment in the fire bays. There are mere inches of clearance for the ladder truck to enter the building. There are less than 6 feet of aisle space between trucks. Therefore, when two doors are open, they hit. There's a mere 6 inches of clearance from the back of the apparatus to the bay wall. And there is 30 inches of clearance to equipment racks that align the walls in between the trucks, causing safety concerns for members who are preparing and getting ready for a call. Now we'll focus on the need for the Verona Rescue Squad. The existing Verona Rescue Squad occupies about 4,600 square feet in its own facility on Church Street. With a growing department, the facility lacks adequate program spaces, adequate clearances for apparatus, and lacks efficiency and safety protocols necessary for a rescue squad of today. The building itself is significantly deteriorated. On the main level, 3 garage bays, 1 large squad room with no private areas for sensitive discussion, non-ADA compliant unisex toilet rooms, 1 day room, 1 storage room, 1 mechanical room, 1 kitchen with access to a second floor office and conference space exist. Understanding a little bit of the history of the Verona Rescue Squad, it was formed in 1927 and is currently the oldest 24-hour, 100% volunteer EMS squad in the state of New Jersey. The current building was a 1920s carriage house that was converted for the squad. It underwent upgrades in 1942 and in 1980. Little has been done since. The current building was a 1920s carriage house that was converted for the squad. It underwent upgrades in 1942 and 1980. Little has been done since. On average, 20 to 30% of the donations received fund the department. It is 100% managed by the volunteer team. In 2019, the Verona Rescue Squad commissioned an evaluation of the existing facility conditions to determine current deficiencies and to evaluate the facility's ability to handle future growth. That report determined that the existing facility lacked some very essential building planning elements and operationally was very inefficient. The report suggested that proper planning concepts could provide a more efficient facility capable of faster turnout, which is critical for life-saving operations. The report highlighted that the existing facility, if renovated, would still lack necessary program elements or the ability to accommodate growth. Commonly, existing facilities often fail on the criteria of adequate space. Main entrance, public access, ADA compliance, additional future apparatus bays, unsafe bay clearances, adequate space for a training room, adequate kitchen space, adequate office space, watch report rooms, no decontamination space, eye wash capabilities, adequate oxygen tank storage facilities, no adequate toilet facilities or shower facilities, no locker rooms, bunk rooms, or private space for calls that may regard sensitive HIPAA-related subjects, maintenance workspace, inadequate parking for members, deteriorated infrastructure, power, lighting, plumbing. The next slides depict several images that show the conditions that exist in the current Verona Rescue Squad facility. Communications for calls in an open work area, inadequate work and storage areas, poor toilet facilities, makeshift storage areas, and inadequate kitchen for a department of this size. More images that depict inadequate work and storage areas or inefficient workspaces. This image also depicts inadequate clearances between the apparatus and the bay walls and/or the storage of other equipment. These images depict various programming issues that don't work within the existing facility. Inadequate locker room spaces, inadequate or unsafe oxygen storage, older generators, rear door flooding, inadequate storage, inadequate bay clearances, as well as communications calls occurring in an open work area. As we've taken a moment to understand the needs, it's important that we understand the emergency service complex priorities. These are priorities established by each of the departments during the planning stage. From our meetings and discussions, it was important to all of the departments that the emergency service complex provided the adequate program square footage to accommodate all program needs, to provide previously unavailable program space, to bring the facility up to current standards for each department, and to create safe and efficient spaces for staff, administration, and the public. The second component was to provide increased efficiency and performance, bringing the facility up to current standards for each department, providing increased efficiencies that would facilitate better turnaround times for calls and responses, and create operational adjacencies which improve performance. The final goal, the final priority, would be to provide shared program spaces and operational cost saving. Capitalizing on a singular facility would allow for shared spaces and eliminate redundancies as possible. It would provide unified services that accommodate all departments and would allow for common areas necessary for the collaboration between departments. During the course of our planning, a meeting was held with the Department of Corrections to review the design of the police department and the layout, as well as the hardened spaces. The question was asked, what facilities in the state are ones to learn from? Which are the state-of-the-art facilities that we should emulate? The Department of Corrections listed the Camden County Police Facility, the Rutgers Police Facility, and the Holmdel Police Facility. All three of these facilities were reviewed and evaluated in concert with our design meetings. After our presentation of the complex to the Department of Corrections, they concluded that the submission would in fact accommodate all of our program needs, provide previously unavailable program spaces, bring the facility up to current standards for each department, and create safe and efficient spaces for the staff and the administration as well as the public. They further indicated that if this facility were built, it would become the model by which all others would be measured. The remaining slides will provide an insight into the emergency services complex that was generated and designed with the input of the chiefs of each of the departments, as well as key staff for all departments. The concept will be unveiled. The first image is the site plan, which shows a proposed two-story emergency services building along with parking on the acquired property 217-225 Pompton Avenue. The next image is the main floor plan of the emergency services complex, divided by each department by color, police being light blue, orange being rescue, red being fire, green being shared spaces, and yellow being common areas throughout the facility. If you zoom in on the blue of the police department, you'll notice that there is a true sally port which hosts 9 covered parking spaces and a secure vestibule to enter a secured processing area for detainees. Detainees are processed and either held in the cell block. There are 3 cell blocks, 2 in a common area, as well as 1 cell block for juveniles and females separated from the group. There is an Alka-Test room as well as an interview and monitoring room in this hardened area. Once one enters the main facility, there is a temporary evidence processing room where evidence is brought in and cataloged and then transferred to the evidence room across the hallway where it is stored in high-density storage systems or processed further. Adjacent to that is an armory and lockup and maintenance room for weapons. There is adjacency to a ready room where police officers will get their direction for moving out on the day, and they can pick up their weapons as they come in and out of the facility. Across from the ready room is a dispatch room, which is notable off of the main lobby with a greeter. This dispatch room could be a shared dispatch area or just for the Department of Verona. There's a patrol division lieutenant's office and then a shared school resource and patrol reporting room, which allows people to adequately prepare reports from incidents that have occurred. The patrol captain's office is significantly larger because multiple meetings are held throughout the day. There's a kitchen and lounge that will accommodate 30 officers on a full shift. And then there's a storage closet for disorder control or riot gear storage. In green, you'll see a courtyard, which is a shared courtyard for all occupants of the facility, open to the outside air and sunlight, and can be used during downtimes throughout the day. The main lobby is entered and the person can contact dispatch through the greeter and can either be put into the private report room or they can be brought into the facility or sent to the other facilities. There's a public records room and a public toilet room to provide access to the public. The last component for the police department is a secure police bay that allows for the processing of evidence vehicles and or police vehicles to be maintained and repaired as well. As we move into the orange, you'll note that the rescue squad has a very large apparatus bay with proper clearances between each of the 6 vehicles that are stored there. There is a medical equipment storage, which is a room that houses all of these supplies that resupply the vehicles as they need it. There is a ready room off of the bay for rescue squad volunteers to stand ready to obtain a call. There's a bunk room for women and men that can house up to 4 people. Across the hallway are the rescue squad offices and uniform storage, and adjacent to that is the female and male locker rooms with adequate toilet and shower facilities for both. There's an elevator and a common toilet and a common stair which take you up to the 2nd floor. And then there's a quiet room for the rescue department. There is a shared decontamination, laundry, and ice room for use by the fire department, police department, and the rescue squad. As we move into the fire department, again, a large apparatus bay to house the ladder truck, the pumper, and the utility vehicles. There is adequate storage and a work area off of the back of the bay for the fire department. Across the hallway are locker rooms and toilet and shower facilities. And then there is adequate storage, an office to the right, a quiet room, and a ready room off of the bays for the fire department itself. At the very end of the facility is a large storage room for the police department for patrol storage, and that is off of a receiving area for the building. That is the main floor of the emergency services complex. The 2nd floor is again divided by color. A good majority of the 2nd floor in green is shared spaces, followed by the police department, which takes up a considerable amount on this level as well. The yellow area is common areas to the entire facility. The orange is rescue, and the red is fire. As we enter the 2nd floor through the elevator, you can see the potential virtual firing range. This has capabilities beyond just training the police department. It can be rented for revenue outside of normal working hours. Adjacent to that, you enter a secure door into the police facility to the police locker room for men. There is also adequate shower facilities and toilet facilities for the men. There is adequate shower and locker facilities for the women. There is a laundry room to be able to clean uniforms that have been soiled or contaminated due to processes at the scene. Across from the locker rooms is a police resiliency room. There are storage rooms associated with the kitchenette and copy area and pantry to serve coffee to the emergency operations center and the detectives on the second floor. There is a detectives bureau which is capable of housing up to 8 people, along with detective storage. There's a janitor's closet. In the corner is the police chief's office and admin, along with an admin captain and office, as well as additional storage. Directly above those offices is the technology or communication server room that will take care of the entire facility. Below that is the police records and file room, which can serve high density storage to house a great deal of information on file. There's a small office adjacent to that. There is a common toilet room for men and women, as well as a janitor's closet for that floor, as well as an administrative copier area in that location. Adjacent to that, you'll find a lactation room for female occupants, as well as administrative lieutenant and police editing room. There is, at the end of the hallway, a close quarter combat training room for the police and other departments. In the green, you will see a shared fitness room, which is for use by all departments. It is open to the courtyard below, so there are views of natural sunlight coming into the fitness center. There's also a large gym storage room. Adjacent to that is a training room, about 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, with a dividing partition that can be created into a 1/3 or 2/3 size room or a full size room. There is a shared cafeteria which will be used for fire and rescue, but will also be used in the event of a training event for any of the departments. Across the hallway from the training room is a public toilet and custodial closet. Across from that is a breakout room for fire and rescue, as well as additional storage on this level. The next images show what the concept could look like. It shows an aesthetic design of the emergency services complex. The first image is the exterior of the building, looking at it from Pompton Avenue, seeing the police department right off of the roadway and the covered sally port for the police department. The next image is a close-up from Pompton Avenue of the Verona Emergency Services Complex, showing the sally port, metal screening, and the second floor office area. The next image is entering the parking lot, a look towards the main entrance as well as the front of the sally port with the garage bay and the stair tower and office space on the second floor. The facility would be constructed and have a more modern aesthetic of masonry and metal panel. As we enter further into the site, we are faced with the main entrance to the emergency services complex. Large American flag, state flag out front, open and inviting for the public to be able to come into the facility and access either the police, rescue, or fire departments. A little further down, we are greeted with the bays, the police, fire, and rescue squad bays, designed to correct the problems of the past with inadequate clearances, bay doors that are 14 feet tall, adequate clearance between vehicles and between each bay door, lighting and proper safety precautions and protocols would be in place for this facility. Towards the end of the building, we get to the fire and rescue entrance to the building, along with the ready rooms and offices that exist in the new design. Much of this building contains program spaces that do not presently exist in any of the departments. As one gets further back into the parking area, you can see the grade differential as we get from the front of the site to the back, showing the retaining walls and two-level parking lot, which is necessary to control costs due to the height of retaining walls. A look at the rear of the building, as well as the receiving area, entrance, and patrol storage room, looking back towards Pompton Avenue from the back part of the property. As we enter the facility, we're greeted with an image of what the lobby could look like. The emergency services complex dispatch with a greeter, along with the public records room and the private interview room that could greet some visitors. Another image of that lobby looking towards the records room. One of the things we do as a firm is we provide graphics and branding that further enhance the design of individual spaces. They set a tone or cause a mood that allows for people to interact with the environment in which they're in. This is an example of what that space could look like. Directly in front is the courtyard available to all departments in the facility. As you'll notice, the courtyard is obscured to provide a level of privacy to those enjoying its space. Here we look at the interior courtyard space, warm and inviting, friendly, again open to the exterior from above, but surrounded on all four sides for a level of privacy for the occupants. Here we see a view of police dispatch operations. Multiple monitors feed information to the dispatch officer who receives incoming phone calls and directs it to the appropriate personnel. An alternate view show this room's ability to house multiple staff members, either creating a dispatch room for the Verona Police Department or a potential shared dispatch for the area. Here we see the police ready room. This is a large, flexible, open space with standing height tables which allow officers to come in before a shift and obtain information and protocols for the day's work. This room has significant amount of storage for equipment and gear necessary for the vehicles, as well as weapons. There are display boards and tack boards for information garnered throughout the day. Another view of the ready room, it also provides direct access for the officers to the sally port so that they can obtain their vehicle and go on their day. Here is an image of what the Police Emergency Operations Center could look like. Flexible furnishings can allow the room to be arranged in various ways to accommodate a variety of departments and people necessary to coordinate an advanced response. Monitors tied into various feeds will provide information to the officers assessing the situation and providing a proactive plan of attack to address the issues. During off times, when it's not an emergency operations center, this room will be used as a meeting room or conference room for the department. Since the police cafeteria will be located on the first floor, and since the emergency operations center and a variety of police offices will be located on the second, we've provided a combined kitchenette, copier, and administrative area for work and relaxation outside of the emergency operations center. Here we see an image of what the police cafeteria could look like. In stark contrast to the existing facility, this cafeteria would house enough room for officers on shift at any given time. A full kitchen with a stove and a microwave and hood, along with adequate and cabinet space, refrigeration for lunches, and the like, would provide adequate facilities for the department. An alternate view of the cafeteria showing the corridor, a warm and inviting space that can provide a safe environment for the officers during their downtime. Here you'll see an image of the hardened, secure area for police detainee processing, a large open area with cabinetry and storage, an area for fingerprinting and identification and photography, as well as view into the cell block and processing areas. Here you will see an image of the police holding cell. Very simple, very mild, secure space. This happens to be the individual room for juveniles and females, which is separate and apart from the other holding cells, which would be used for men and adults. A view of what the locker rooms could look like, built-in benches, power and electric within the lockers themselves so that radios could be charged directly in the lockers, drawer units underneath for shoes and boots, tactical gear, as well as lockers for the officers individually. Here you'll see an image of the secure sally port along with the entrance from the ready room, the garage bay door, which provides access to outside. This is where detainees will be brought into the facility and be able to access the facility through the secure vestibule. Another view of the sally port looking towards the secure vestibule and storage room entrance. Here we can see the image of the rescue squad bays and work area, clearly showing adequate storage between the vehicles as well as the equipment mounted on the wall in proper racks. Very efficient. The vehicles will have power and air supplies direct to each of the vehicles. Alternatively, you have a view of the fire department bays showing the pumper trucks and the ladder truck, again with adequate clearance between each of the vehicles and gear storage in the facility. This view is from the workroom at the back of the bay. Here you see an example of the fire department ready room. The rescue squad ready room would be very similar, adjacent to the bay, available to the department volunteers who would come out and stand ready to go out on a call. The intent for all of the facilities is that the ready rooms and providing adequate, safe, and comfortable spaces would allow the volunteers to spend more time at the facility, thus in turn reducing the amount of time necessary to put out a call. Here we see an image of the shared fitness center promoting health and wellness for the officers, for the rescue squad, and for the fire department. An alternate view of the fitness center adjacent to the courtyard, showing the large amounts of natural light which are valued in health and wellness. Here you see the shared multipurpose training room. Flexibility of furnishings will allow this room to be used in a variety of scenarios, as a classroom space, as a conference area, as a training room. Whiteboards and projection screens with the ability of this room to be divided into 2/3 or 1/3 for larger groups or smaller groups can be open to outside groups, revenue producing, and give the facility much needed space that currently doesn't exist in any of the department's programs. An alternate view of that training room, again, open to the courtyard, which allows natural light to enter, providing a much more vibrant environment for the occupants, especially in a building this large. Now let's turn to some frequently asked questions. During the course of the design and the development of these buildings, we've received a host of questions that we've prepared responses to. In an effort to be transparent, we want to make sure that these frequently asked questions are displayed for all to see. A question was asked at what it would cost to rebuild Fire Station Number 2 to code in its current location. It was responded that even if the current firehouse was completely gut renovated in its current spot, it would still fail to meet the program requirements, OSHA requirements, and clearances needed for an active firehouse today. A firehouse meeting the program criteria wouldn't fit on the existing site. The previous studies conducted conceptualized various options, and none of those options met all of the program needs for the facility. Finally, given the significant settling and structural cracking, the structural repairs could be excessive and potentially cost prohibitive on their own. To build a smaller standalone building at today's cost could be up to 25% higher in cost due to duplicate mobilization costs, as well as additional square foot required for redundant infrastructure like toilets, elevators, emergency generation, all due to the loss of shared program space in a combined building. Similarly to the last question, what would the cost of rebuilding the rescue squad building into code in its current location? As indicated in the presentation, even if the rescue squad was completely gut renovated and added onto in its current spot, it would still fail to meet the program requirements, OSHA requirements, and clearances needed for an active rescue squad today. A rescue facility meeting those program criteria would not fit on the existing site. In fact, the previous study conducted conceptualized various options, including the acquisition of adjacent property, and yet none of these options met all of the program needs of the facility. The next frequently asked question was, did the administration consider relocating the police department to a new building at the site of Fire Station 2? And what would be the cost? As indicated in the presentation, and based upon the program requirements that the police department currently lacks, any of the 20+ sites evaluated in town do not have the size to accommodate the program need for a new police department. Given that, the needed fire department program wouldn't fit on the existing site, and the fact that the police department program is significantly larger than that, the site would not be enough to accommodate the police department. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to review this presentation and obtain more information on the proposed emergency services complex for the Township of Verona. Should you have any questions, please feel free to email Solutions Architecture. Any questions received will be provided with responses through the Township of Verona. We thank you and look forward to continued presentations and providing additional information as the concepts are developed.